Hi everyone. I was excited 2 weeks ago when Ian said he was proposing to do a series of sermons on Old Testament characters, since I find many of them to be very interesting and real. While circumstances and societies can be very different from our own, human beings tend generally, I believe, to stay the same. And we can find out so much of interest if we can understand the context in which these people lived. I suggested that I might follow up after each sermon. So here, a little bit late, is the first one on Abraham. Many of us may not be aware that he is considered to be the father figure of all three of what are called the Abrahamic religions. That is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, which is the chronological order for those three religions. All three share what we call the Old Testament, which is, of course, the Hebrew Bible, the first part of our scriptures, and also is present in the Quran. Abram, which means exalted father, was the son of Terah and was born in Ur of the Chaldees or Chaldees. The Chaldeans were one of the earliest dynasties associated with the Persian Babylonian region, that is the part that we call Mesopotamia. And there is at present an excellently interesting series which you can find on BBC iPlayer, presented by Samira Ahmed, about the history of Persia, in which she makes reference to many people mentioned in the Bible. Terah takes some of his family, including Abram, Lot, and Sarai, or Sarah, which means my princess, out of Ur to settle in Haran. And it is from there that Abram is called to go to Canaan, as Ian explained in his sermon 2 weeks ago. Abram is later renamed Abraham, father of many, when God promises he will be the father of a great nation, which eventually ends up being two nations, the Jews and the Arabs, in earlier times called the Ishmaelites, after his son Ishmael, which Hagar, the Egyptian slave, bore him. As Ian said, Abram was not always quite truthful. He seems to indulge in what we might call a little subterfuge or deceit in an attempt to preserve him from those who might have had eyes on the beautiful Sarah. The story loses interest in Ishmael, since it is Isaac, his son by Sarah, who carries the Judaistic line or lineage. We learn early on in the Bible that names, and therefore the renaming of both people and places, are very symbolic in the Old Testament, and we may look into this further in the future. Abram comes over as a man of great humanity. Not only does he stand by and rescue his nephew Lot when he is in difficulties, but he pleads with God to spare the city of Sodom, even if only 10 righteous people can be found there. Perhaps the most prominent aspect of Abram's character, however, is his faith. We might even say his blind faith, as evidenced by his willingness to sacrifice even his son Isaac, who had been such a long time coming, although God obviously had no intention of him being slain. It is a test of Abram's faith, and on this occasion, he passes the test absolutely. When he died, Abram was buried with Sarah in Hebron. Our faith is frequently being tested, possibly no more so than during this pandemic. As we look at other characters, I hope our understanding will grow and our faith be strengthened. And then last Sunday, Ian moved on to consider Sarah, Abram's wife, and what kind of a person she was. Ian mentioned that she has a bit of a poor reputation, particularly so in relation to her maidservant Hagar. In our times, with the understanding we have due to studies in psychiatry and psychology, we might well consider Sarah to have been a person of low self-esteem. To be barren in those days was seen as a curse, a failure, quite a despairing position to be in. So we might have some understanding of her reactions. She suggests the surrogacy, which makes Hagar the mother. Then she feels, rightly or wrongly, that Hagar is despising her, scorning her, and even today we do use that phrase, hell hath no fury. She then blames everything on Abram, who gives her carte blanche to do what she wants to Hagar, so treats her so badly that the young woman leaves. God later instructs Hagar to return. But then, when Sarah has her own son, she has no further use for Hagar and hers and kicks them out. Certainly not the sweetest of ladies. Ian pointed out how Sarah's suggestion that Hagar be a surrogate was trying to help things along, since God didn't seem to be doing much. There is a lovely Bach cantata entitled God's Time is the Best Time. But to really believe and live by that motto demands faith beyond all measure. Sarah was past the age of childbearing. She may indeed have laughed, perhaps quite cynically, bitterly even, when the promise of a child was made yet again. She did eventually come to realize, of course, that God does keep his promises, but not necessarily on our timetable. We don't find out if it made her a bit more better-natured. This really is what the chapters of Genesis are about. Faith, or rather, stress testing it. Both Abram and Sarah's faith is tested to its endurance, and eventually they come out successfully from the ordeal. How do we fare in these trying times? Not able to see our friends or have any company, not able to see our loved ones, young or old, not able to be at their bedside, not even able to attend their funeral. These are not insignificant tests that we face today, and we pray our faith will stand the test.